First, I want to clarify that these are not things that will indicate clinical depression diagnosed. What I'm more so getting at is that these are things that can be an indication of being in a bad mood more than 50% of the time. And when I say a bad mood, I don't necessarily just mean being sad. I also mean possibly being angry. Any emotions that are less than happy or what people would normally consider positive emotions. With that being said, let's start out with degrees. 11 degrees, 12 degrees, 18 and 19 degrees of Cancer. 29 degrees of Virgo. That's a big one. 8 degrees of Libra. 7 and 24 degrees of Sagittarius. 5, 10, and 18 degrees of Capricorn. 10, 16, 18, 22 or 23, and 29 degrees of Pisces. And then if you have these degrees repeating in your chart over and over again in different signs, 7, 12, 18, 22, and 23, and then of course 29 degrees. Okay, so with that being said, we'll move into the placements. So obviously mood has to do with the moon sign because the moon is your emotions. So the obvious one, moon in Scorpio, that is where the moon is in its fall, aka the worst place for the moon to be. The moon just tends to not really have a good time in Scorpio. As always, if you have your moon in Scorpio, the positive spin to put on it is that these lessons wouldn't be put onto people unless they were able to handle them. So the people with the moon in Scorpio will come out on the other side as people who can handle some of the most negative emotions and negative situations. Moon in Capricorn. It's the opposite sign of its ruler. The moon is ruled by Cancer. You put the moon in the opposite sign of what it's ruled by, and it is just not very happy. Moon in Pisces. This can cause emotional overwhelm and a very heightened sensitivity. Moon in Cancer, specifically if it has hard aspects. So if your moon is in Cancer and it has squares, oppositions, inconjunctions. Moon in the 4th house. Depending more so maybe on positive and negative aspects, but it's just the fact that the moon, which is your emotions, is down in that very sensitive place, which is the 4th house. That can cause you to not necessarily be able to kick emotional states that quickly, to sort of just be ruminating down there. And this can be attached to very deep roots where emotions come through familial lines, and they are things that have to be healed over the course of years rather than something that is easy to just step out of. Moon in the 8th house. So this is like emotional heaviness, which is tied to trauma, dynamics that happen with other people, loss, and the darkness that comes with the world. It is liable to be constantly scarred by things. And then of course, moon in the 12th house, which is like an inner sorrow that is stacked on top of by not being seen by other people and sometimes by yourself. So there is this background echo of sadness from your attachment to all that is. It's kind of getting triggered all the time. The moon with negative aspects to Saturn, of course, square, opposite, and even being conjunct to Saturn. That, of course, can lead to chronic sort of negativity because the harsh reality of Saturn is, of course, sitting on your emotional body. Moon square or opposite to Mars, an irritability or an always annoyed type of baseline state. Moon square or conjunct to Pluto. That's a big one. And a lot of the times the people with the 8th house, the Plutonian, the Scorpio, there will be a resentment that can be underlying, and it is just a constant thing. Moon conjunct square or opposite to Neptune, having a vague, unknowable sadness. You don't even know why you're sad, and it's just this feeling out of place kind of thing. Confusion, even like numbness, or like emotionally being drained. Okay, so moving away from the moon, other placements in general. Saturn in your fourth house. So if the fourth house is the seat of the soul, is the ancestry, the childhood home, the sort of emotional seat that lies at the very pit of your gut and your soul, so to speak. Having Saturn there then causes this emotional heaviness or strain, this big pressure that, of course, takes, as Saturn does, a long, long time to integrate. Having Mars in the fourth house, as well as having Pluto in the fourth house even, a hostile inner environment, which often comes from a hostile environment in childhood, which causes a chronic, just negative baseline that you're operating from. If the ruler of your fourth house has negative aspects to it, so whatever planet rules the sign that is on your fourth house cusp, wherever that planet may fall in your chart, if that planet has negative aspects on it, especially if it has a lot of negative aspects on it, then that can cause a chronic bad mood. So even sun aspects, if you have your sun conjunct to Saturn, you can just be a hard ass who's always looking at sort of the more negative aspects of life so as to try to be realistic, which ends up actually being pessimistic. Your sun square to Saturn, of course, that's a big one. You just have Saturn constantly beating the crap out of the core of what you are. You're not really going to be in a good mood. Sun conjunct Neptune, people. So there's like not really a solid foundation in your life. Therefore, experiencing like a withdrawal or a resignation type of from life in general. Having Neptune in your first house can cause you to have a low vitality or a vitality that cannot be directly accessed. Therefore, you are constantly sort of just being exhausted by life. A couple of Mars ones. If you have Mars in Cancer, then you can get the repressed anger and therefore kind of moodiness. Mars conjunct Saturn can be a frustration or a repression that therefore turns depressive in nature. And then some things that can just sort of cause it in general. Having your moon, no matter where it is, having multiple hard aspects on it. So whatever house your moon may fall, if it's got a lot of negative crap on it, then of course you're going to not be in the best mood all the time because your poor emotional body is getting beat up. Having your moon that doesn't have any other aspects besides being aspected to Mars, Saturn, Pluto, whether that be conjunction, squares, opposition, anything, if your moon is only aspected by those three planets, that can cause a chronic negative mood. Kind of more of a loose one, but if you don't have very positive aspects to your Venus or Jupiter, or not many aspects at all to them, you don't get that high flavor of Venus and Jupiter, those positive things, really lending itself to you that much. And of course, if you have 4th, 8th house, and 12th house emphasis, where you have a lot of planets in those houses, that is a lot of emotional sensitivity, and a lot of emotional sensitivity in this world that is very harsh, then of course can cause you to be in a negative mood very often. Of course, as always, these things can be integrated and then used for positive means. It's just when you have negative things astrologically, it's something you have to consciously choose to use rather than just being handed something that's good, right? Anyhow, I do personal readings if that's something that would interest you, and we can look at yours specifically, but that's just something I'm throwing out there.